YouTube fam, it's your girl Leah, back again with another video. In today's video, as you can see from the title, we're gonna be talking about tips, tricks, budgeting tactics, how I live my life in order to be able to travel. This, like a lot of the videos I make, is purely a suggestion from you guys. So your guys' comments down below in my comment section do not go unanswered. But I got this comment maybe a few weeks ago, a month at this point as you're probably watching this, and it says, "Hey Leah, can you do a video on how you afford trips, i.e. savings, credit cards, rewards?" And I responded back to that comment at the time because I had no idea I was going to make this video, because I said in my comment it will be a pretty short video. I don't have any debt. I talked about I don't have kids. I don't have things. So I was like, I don't know what I would even talk about in said video. However, it was an oversimplification of an answer. One, there's a lot of people who don't have debt who don't go on trips, or there's a lot of people who do have children and go on more trips than I could even imagine. So I feel like my answer was not in any way an answer. It was not helpful, and I sat down because I got more questions about it on my IG. If you follow me there, I asked you guys, what type of videos do you want to see? I got another comment about budgeting tips and tricks for travel, and I was like, okay, it's a sign. I need to actually sit down and think about it. And when I actually thought about it, I actually had a few pages of notes, so I did have a response that I could give. I'm going to break this down though, because I think when I thought about it, the total answer, again, it was an oversimplification, but I think the three things that it really boils down to is expenses, debt, and my streams of income. And so when I wrote it down and I actually thought about it, I was like, there is a way that I do afford. There's my savings tactics. There are tips and tricks that are for me, because this comment was for me. I'm always like, well, I don't know if this advice will work for everybody. But when I broke down my buckets, I think it's high level enough that you don't have to live the same life that I live to be able to implement some of these tactics. So I'm going to break it down. I'm going to get into the savings, the way I afford, and all of that in this video. But I think it's important to talk about streams of income to be able to afford some of these things, because that factors in heavily as well too. You have to have the money to pay for these trips as well. It's not just about savings. You have to have something coming in to be able to save. So I wrote so much that I said it's going to have to be a part 1 and a part 2, but I will upload them back to back. So one day I'll do this video and the next day I'll do this. So it's not too far apart. You'll see me wearing the same thing. The reason I was so skeptical about making this video is because people can do marvelous things at different ranges of an income. People at $40,000 a year could go on more trips than somebody making $140,000 a year, and it's going to be all about how they save and spend their money. The way their money flows could be totally different. This $140,000 a year person could be blowing money fast, high amounts of debt, high amounts of expenses. They could be struggling more than a person who makes 40, 50, 60,000. So the income levels could vastly change. And that's why the CNBC Make It series was so interesting to me. You guys know I did a couple of reactions. I think it was earlier this year, if not earlier last year, where I would react to CNBC's Make It. They had a millennial money series where they follow around a millennial and how they spend their money. They would have the title, they would have the city and their thumbnail, and they would say how this person spends $70,000 living in New York, or how this person spends $160,000 living in San Francisco, and all of that. And what was so interesting about those series to me was seeing that wheel of how they divide their expenses, whether that be rent, savings, travel, gas, food, those types of things. That's what interested me about it, because for everybody it's a thing. And so that's why I was like, I'm hesitant to make this video because my wheel is different. However, I think understanding the wheel, understanding what plays a part and factors into the wheel for me is important, because I can't go to Jackie Aina or Aaliyah's Face, two of my favorite creators who travel all the time. Aaliyah's Face just took a solo trip to Mexico a couple of days ago. She just got up and went, and I'm like, I would love to do that, not only from having the versatility to do that, from not having to answer to anybody, but two, the money. You gotta lay that money on the line and just put it out there and go on that trip. So asking like Aaliyah's Face, how do you save for trips? I know it would be a little bit different, but I think her answer would be the same as it would be for anybody, and it's having, of course, the income streams, which I'll talk about in part 2, but having probably that regimen and having that kind of discipline to save in that way. But the first thing that is specific to me, you have to understand about me, is your girl is Frugal McDougal. If you've watched the game, think Jason Pitts. But the funny thing about him, his character arc was how cheap he was as a person. I might not show it a lot on YouTube. It might seem like, oh no, she's not super cheap, but I am. How you gonna tell a girl who hasn't gone to a professional hairstylist and paid to get her hair crocheted in for the last 6 years and has done her hair herself, she ain't cheap? How you gonna tell a girl who has several videos of her eating a good little breakfast at the Waffle House for a good $10? She ain't cheap. A lot about me, I don't never look cheap, honey. I don't never look cheap, but I spend my money cheaply. But there are elements of my life where I don't mind spending a penny. And that's where decision comes in, where you for yourself have to put pillars of your life. And that's how I organize my life, is I put myself into pillars. What do I want to spend my money on? Not what I need to spend my money on. Not at all. I have my needs. My needs are going to be food. They're going to be water. They're going to be shelter. What do I want to spend my money on? I do not have a car payment debt. I paid my car off last year. So for the last year, I haven't had a car payment at all. Nor do I have a mortgage. I want a mortgage, but I don't have that right now. I do not have any credit card debt. We'll get into credit cards in a minute, but I don't have any credit card debt as we speak. And when it comes to loans, student loan debt, I have about roughly $13,000 right now. I posted on Instagram a while ago that if President Joey B gets that 10 grand out of here, then I'm gonna be only sitting on about $3,000. Debt for me, very low. And this is not a brag at all. Not a brag at all to say I have no debt, because 4 years ago, I had probably over $50,000, including a car, including my student loans at that point, and including probably over $20,000 in credit card debt. And I had a huge problem. Now, I'm proud of where I am right now, but I had to take sacrifices to get to that. I don't know where my 20s was. I'm in my 30s now. I'm 32. My 20s me was ridiculous, was not the Jason Pitts, was doing everything and did not have the financial tactics that I have now. And what gave me that now is going through the mud about 4, 5, 6 years ago. 6 years ago, before I started Leah Lamond, I wasn't no travel, wasn't going anyplace. And even to the point of 3 years ago, I had to move back in with my family for a year so that I could pay down that credit card debt. I didn't pay rent for a year. What I had to do was get that debt out of here. Proud of myself now. My score is up to 755. I have a 755. Excellent. I'm trying to get to 800. But I had to go through it. And I'm glad that I had the pillars to fall back on, like family who was like, yeah, girl, come on in, girl. You going through it, but you gonna get out of this situation. And now, during those times, you ain't see me go on no travels. You ain't see me going on no trips, because I had to have the discipline to get out of that situation that I was in back in those days. So now I take my debt free very seriously. And I do take my expenses seriously too, because you could be like, well, your debt could be low, but your expenses could be high. I keep my rent low. I don't stay in the fanciest $2,000 a month apartment, nor would I want to. My Duke Energy bill, I keep that low. I try to keep it under $60 a month. But I live very much so where my energy expenses ain't that expensive. It's about how you spend your money and what kind of level of restraint you have. And it's also about how you save your money. Your debt, your expenses, and all that ground into how much money you can save and what you're saving for. And I make saving for travel a pillar in my savings bucket. Some people save for travel. Some people save for a wedding. I didn't understand how expensive weddings were until this viral TikTok where everybody is going on this woman who's saying that $35,000 is not a lot of money for a wedding. I never won a wedding, so I'm not hip to the game of how much wedding savings should be, but I thought $35,000 sounds reasonable. It must not be, because in her caption she said it's $85,000. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, you're doing nothing but solidifying my decision for elopement, but saving for a wedding, my best friend just had one. She had to sacrifice. She was talking about, you have to save each month for your wedding. I ain't got to worry about that. So for me, it's travel, it's home savings, and it's emergency funds. Those are my 3 buckets of where I save my money each month. Travel is a pillar for me. It's what I want to do. It's something I've been passionate about, and I didn't do it a lot in my 20s. I wasn't financially where I needed to be in my 20s. That's why 30s is lit. Honey, 30s is lit. And home buying, I got my credit score where it needs to be. I got my debt where it needs to be. I just need the market to be where it needs to be. So I'm just putting money in this situation until it can be where I need it to be to buy a house. I don't want to overspend. The frugal in me never wants to overspend for a house. It's hard for me to turn over my money for something that I don't 100% want. Another thing, not having my pulse on the game of reality. Clearly, I don't have my pulse on the game of marriage, nor do I have my pulse on the game of how much a car payment should cost. Y'all let me know on Instagram. I was thinking that those viral TikToks, have you seen those viral TikToks where people are going around and asking how expensive somebody's car payment is? And some people are saying like $600, $900, $1,100. They're saying a lot of money. And I thought, oh my God, that's crazy, because I've never paid more than $250. My first car payment was $246. My last one was $119. Because they paid me out for that first car. You've seen my channel, you know the situation. Totaled car, got paid out for it. So my next car payment, and my cars ain't been old. I mean, I drive a 2016 now, and I'm okay. Again, Frugal McDougal me loves my 2016 car. However, you guys let me know, oh, Leah, you're not going to get no $250 car payment these days. No. The average is about $300 to $500 a month. That's $300 to $500 a month, though, that you guys are telling me that's what you guys are paying in a car payment. I'm saying I'm about to pay that for a trip. I'm about to pay that for a trip because, again, you have to do what makes sense for you. Yes, I could have a $600 car payment. I could go out right now. My car is paid for, buy another car right now, pay $600 a month. But my back of my mind is like, well, that's a flight, Leah. That's a flight. Because if you think about it, I look back at some of my flight prices just so I had an idea. My flight for San Francisco, there and back, was $263. So $263. That's a car payment. Well, not a car payment according to y'all. I'm not paying less than $300, but that ain't that bad. I mean, I've never been to San Francisco, but it was a good trip. My trip that you guys saw recently. So San Francisco was last year. Chicago and New York, I did a here to New York, then New York to Chicago, then Chicago back situation. That cost me $459. Another car payment, okay? Another car payment. Could I get another car right now? Could I get a 2020? I would never buy a new car. So I would never get like a 2022 or 2023. I would never get a new car. I always try to get 2 years older than the year we're in. So my first car I got in 2012 was a 2010. My car that I got in 2018 was a 2016. If I got a car right now, I get a 2020. Y'all telling me right now I could not expect to pay less than really $350. Less than $350, which I've got my mind around it. I'm hip to it. Like when y'all first said it, I was like, ain't no way. But in my mind, okay, I'll pay $350 for a car. I wouldn't pay more. That's where I stopped the limit. But that's a car and a half. That $459 that I took to go to here to do that, because I wanted the experience. Now you're probably like, well, that's local, Leah. That's domestic. Domestic flights are going to be different than international. Now, I planned on going to London in August. So last August, I had planned and paid for a trip to London. I was going August 26th through 30th. The reason that did not happen, because if you follow me on Instagram, you saw August 30th, I was at NC State for a work trip. When I booked the trip, NC State hadn't put their dates for the career fair, but I thought they started in September. I had to cancel that trip because I'm over college and I could not miss that trip. So I canceled that, but I paid at that time $912. Now, again, not super cheap. It's not the $250 or $260 to go over to San Francisco. It's across the pond. I did shop around for that. That was leaving from JFK and going to London. So getting to JFK, I spent another $200. So total trip wise, it probably was like $1,100. My here to JFK to London, London back to JFK, then JFK back to here, about $1,100. But you have to shop around for things like that. You're probably like, why did you do the JFK to London thing, not a direct? A direct from London, I did a simulation of a direct Charlotte to London trip. Well, not a direct. This one had a couple of layovers, but I looked at the cheapest flight from Charlotte to London, and that flight is $1,824. $1,824. Then I did the same thing, same date. So I used the May 1st, the May 5th of 2023 dates. Looked it up. JFK to Heathrow, $581. That's $1,300 of a difference between the two. So all I have to do is get from here to go up to JFK. JFK from Charlotte is always like it's less than $300. It's never that expensive of a flight. So I could get there for roughly less than $800. You have to do things like that. That's tip number one. Shop around. Look around. Don't just look at your airport. Know if there's another, because Charlotte is an international airport, so we could get a direct to London, and it's just going to be super expensive. JFK, I just know from history, is a lot cheaper of an airport. So that just tells you a little bit of, I think, a backstory of who I am to understand why travel fits into my life the way it does. There's nothing wrong with one of your buckets being saving for that Ford F-150, because I hear trucks are expensive. There's nothing wrong with car being your vice. Like I'm not like you, Leah. I can't be driving around no Nissan. I need the whip. I need the Porsche. I need the BMW. I love those cars, the look of them, but I'm an A to B type car girl. So I'm not gonna put car as one of my savings buckets. So that's the things you need to understand. Where your pillars are, making travel a part of your pillar if you need it to be, and making as many pillars as you want, whether that's saving for travel, whether that's saving for a home, whether that's saving for a new handbag, get that Louis Vuitton, get that Louis, whether that's wedding, whatever your pillars are. Just know the more you spread your pillars out though, the thinner the slices get. You know, the pie is a lot fuller when you're only taking 3 slices out, but when you're making that pizza into like several different slices, you know, the amount that you can put into each bucket is a lot less. So just keep that in mind. I try to keep what I'm saving for to a certain point. And so since right now one of those pillars isn't saving for, you know, kids' college and stuff like that, you know, that's a future pillar of a future Leah's life. Currently, you're not thinking about that. Currently, I ain't thinking about childcare. She ain't thinking about none of that right now. So that's not a slice in my bucket right now. But if that is a slice, maneuver accordingly. Slice your life the way you want to slice your life. Another thing, I book most of my flights in advance and around the March time frame. So I booked San Francisco, I booked London, I booked my cruise, my birthday trip that I have coming up soon. I booked all that in March of this year. So I typically have had very good success with booking in March. I know there might not be something to it, but I've booked a lot of good, affordable trips in March. I think my Key West trip was pretty cheap. It was like $200 something, but that's Key West. A lot of Florida trips are a lot more cheap. My LA trip was roughly about $400 something. It was less than $500 to go to LA. I don't know if that's a travel hack or I've just seen some successes, but I've had a lot of success with booking my trips in March. That's what I plan to do next year too. With cruises, they're easier to book though well in advance. If you're booking for a cruise, you can book a cruise now for 2024 and continue to pay on it. Sometimes cruises are seen as the more, not affordable option, but more economical option from the sense in the standpoint of, say you book a 2024 trip now, you can pay what, $50, $60 a month to get you to where you need to be in 2024. And I mean, a great way to travel, a great way to see places. You can push it out as long as you want to. I see people in the Black Cruise group that I'm in on Facebook where people say, I got a cruise booked for 2025. And I'm like, okay. But I think also saving for going to a destination other than cruising, just say that $50 or $60 or however much you will be saving for a cruise, put that in again in your savings bucket. Now, I said at the top of this video, I don't have credit card debt. That does not mean I don't utilize my credit card. That's all I use when I go on my trips. That's all I use. I do not use my debit card. I have been embarrassed before when pulling out that debit card, and you know how your banks be. Honey, what you doing in Florida? I'm buying a bag of chips and a drink, and they're like, decline, and I'm like, oh gosh. But I noticed that, you know, credit cards do a lot better of a job of not than your debit cards. Now, I think debit cards have gotten a lot better, but that one time scarred me back in 2019 when I was going to Florida with my family. So I use my card, but what I do is I pay it off by the next statement. So I let that money hit my statement and then I pay it off that next statement. Again, pulling the money that I had saved and my savings for travel. I keep that money there. It's a savings account. It's not a checking account. I keep that money there and I move it over when it's time to pay off that credit card debt. So that's how I maneuver betwixt those accounts. It is not a travel credit card. It is a Chase card. The one card I would get if I were, and I'm just keep on thinking about it, is that Citi Advantage, the AA American Airlines Advantage card. I had a previous manager who had that card, and she traveled a lot, but she also used it for other things. Like she would pay for all our college registrations on it. This was my previous job. She would pay for all our college registrations, all our travel for that, all our merch, everything we would buy it on that card, and she would just rack up those points. She would just rack up those points. I don't think she ever paid for a flight because she was using that card as our corporate card, because at that company we didn't, or maybe we did, I just don't know if she got one. We didn't have a corporate card. So she was really getting those points. For me, I just have not, because I feel like I don't want to use my credit card that often. And it's more of a me thing. I know my credit card is my vice, and just if somebody, has an addiction to a certain thing, I don't want to get caught up in it. And I think that's the only reason. I'm probably missing out on so many rewards, so many trips, so many of this, that, and the third. However, I don't want to become dependent on my credit card in the way that you have to be a little bit to get enough to get those travel rewards that you really need. I don't think I travel at an extensive amount. I feel like I go on maybe 8 flights max a year, which is a lot, but it's not the frequent flyer you think it is, because there are people who are on 20 flights a year annually. So I know that I'm missing out on a lot. And there's this TikToker who I follow who gives so many credit card good tips. I'll link her, or I'll list her name on the screen right now. Follow her on TikTok because she gives those travel card recommendations. I know this question specifically was give us credit card tips and tricks. I just don't utilize my card. I do not carry a balance on that. I want it paid off. I do have probably on my Chase card, I do have about 20,000 points, but I just let that sit. I don't have a need for that $200 just yet, but I don't utilize it at the rate to get me enough to, that $200 is not enough for a flight. But if I did have one, it'd probably be that Citi American Airlines, because I do travel with American Airlines a lot, and I do have quite a few American Airlines airline miles. I think I have enough for like a $300 flight right now. I do stick with one carrier. I think it's just like with anything, you get more loyalty flying Delta or Frontier or JetBlue. We don't have JetBlue, but Southwest, me flying multiples, I kind of stick to one, if that makes sense. I'm a loyalist to American Airlines. Another tip, when I go back to my pillars of savings, you're like, how do you save? I save my savings in a savings account. I do not keep money in a checking account. Once my money hits my checking account, I'm divvying it up. I do not let money sit in my checking account for too long, because you're not earning any interest on a checking account at all. You're not earning a bit of interest. If I look at, I have one checking account that is connected to my savings for this bank, but if you look at the screen on the side, you can see how much my checking is yielding in terms of interest, and then you can see how much my savings, and it doesn't seem like a lot, like it's just like 2%. I don't want some money sitting in an account that is only getting 0.1 when it can be gaining a little bit more. Like, especially if I'm saving that money. If that money is in my account for rent, for expenses that have to come out immediately, yes, it has to sit in my checking. Let it sit. But if it's a savings, your checking is not a savings account. Your checking is not your savings account. Have a savings account. And I have at least 3 different savings accounts. I'm OCD, but I like my money to be online. Online savings is much better than, for me, a brick and mortar bank. So look into a online savings, because typically their interest rates are a bit higher. So you want to have an online savings. They typically don't have to go through the hoops that brick and mortar have to go through, so they're able to offer you a better interest rate. So look for like Barclays, look for Ally. I'll look for a couple on here. Ally used to have a really good one. Now they keep going down with their interest rate. They have stayed stable for at least a year, but there was a point when they were like a higher percentage, which I really loved and why I went with them. There are multiples. I have mine in, again, 3 different buckets. A credit union, one of them is in a credit union. I keep my relationship with that credit union because I was grandfathered into that credit union, and I don't want to lose my relationship because it's always good to have a credit union. But I have a credit union, I have a brick and mortar, I have an online, I have multiple situations because I want my money to sit in savings. So that is my tip. Have that pillar for your travel, but don't touch that. And I know it's hard not to touch that because emergencies do come up. Emergencies, trust me, I just had an emergency come up. So that's my advice. Have 2 long-term savings, 1 immediate savings. So emergency. Your 2 long-terms can be whatever you're saving for. If you already have a house, cool. You don't need that. You can put your money that you have for your emergency maintenances and all that into your emergency account. But whatever your 2 long-term goals is, whether that's, I was going to say retirement, but you should have a 401k or a Roth IRA, something that gives you more interest than a savings account. But 2 long-term, 1 short-term goal. 2 long-term goal, 1 short-term goal for your savings. That is my tips and tricks for how I budget for things. It's really keeping those expenses low, keeping my debt low, saving like a beast for the things I want to do and not making frivolous purchases. But you have to have one key word, and that's discipline. Discipline is the biggest thing of all of this. Discipline. And you can save a lot. Again, going back, that's why I feel like it was an oversimplification for saying I don't have kids. Yes, kids are a little bit of an expense, but if you have the discipline to put your money where you need to, you can put the kids bucket here, you can put the travel bucket here, and you can put the home bucket here. Because my money goes where my money goes, it's my budget. So that's why I was like, it's gonna be me sharing my thing, but I know my life doesn't look like everybody else's life. But the question was, how do I? You guys asked me, and I'm sharing how I utilize it. And again, it's just the discipline, it's the expenses, it's the debt, and it's also the income streams, which I've been talking now for, like I guessed it, over 40 minutes. This video is probably gonna be cut down a wee bit, but I've been talking for quite some time. Streams of income is important too, baby. Let's not act like you don't have to have the streams of money to come in to push them out to the savings, to the expenses, to the debt, to all of these things. You have to have that in. That's the most important key factor that I wanted to discuss in this video, but I've been talking for so long, so I'll discuss that in the next video. In the next video, I'll break down streams in a way that is digestible and in a way that can be helpful to you. That even if you don't have these streams, you can look for ways to maneuver these streams into your life to play into feeding back into your travel savings budget. So overall, that has been this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. Even if you didn't, still give it a big thumbs up. We want all the love and support over here on this channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss anything that I do, and have that bell on. So again, you don't miss anything because you want to see that streams video, which will probably go up tomorrow in real time, be the video right after this. But still, have that bell on so you know immediately. Make sure you're following me on Instagram at LeeLaVon89 so you can keep up with my shenanigans in real time. TikTok at LeeLaVon, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.